FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
Every week we talk to my friend Stephen Yates with the D.C. International Advisory, foreign policy expert, and former advisor to VP Dick Cheney. Stephen, happy Monday to you. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Dana. Great to be with you.
There's several different topics that are kind of all over the board here. But first up, the Washington Times published a story this morning discussing this revolving door of generals taking command in Afghanistan. What does it say when our commander-in-chief has changed the top commanders in Afghanistan, 5 times in just, 4 years? When Iraq, it seemed that we had the same generals for the entire, conflict or the entire term Bush was in office. What does that signify?
Well, changeover, it's unusual to have that pace of changeover in a war theater. But really, for all intents and purposes, for this president, this has not been a war theater. This has been a wind down a war theater. And I think it has been a reflection on bad relationships dealing with host government, changing missions coming out of Washington. And in the case of General Allen, who is a personal friend and someone I still have immense respect for, some seemingly non-combat related distractions that shortened that tenure.
Yes, and then there was, of course, General McChrystal, who it seemed he got in trouble with the administration after that Rolling Stone interview where he was criticizing the vice president and the president, and then he was there, a year? He was there for a year.
Yeah, it was a very brief tenure, but it was one of these places where I think that was their convenient hook. I can't understand why very distinguished generals spend time with Rolling Stone, but the president had decided to change his mind again about policy, and that's when he wanted to change course and brought in his next general, Petraeus at the time.
Yes, and then we have Afghanistan's leadership accusing us of somehow colluding with the Taliban, which that to me seems, we have Hamid Karzai, who's accused the United States of working with the Taliban. I'm not quite sure how he could come to such a conclusion, and I don't know why he would turn on the very entity that really put him in power.
Well, that's definitely the case. I mean, Hamid Karzai has been a mixed bag from the get-go. And some of us who have had the blessing of dealing with him for longer periods of time than the average person have come to know that he is capable of saying things that are shocking and seemingly unwise and irrelevant from time to time. At the same time, though, he has been a very important part of holding what is not a perfect country together. And so anyone who's had to find a way to deal with him knows that every once in a while you'll get these bursts. The problem is that the administration is leaving the door wide open to an exit, and Hamid Karzai is one of those left having to make deals with the devils that are behind. They're going to need a transition of government to a new leader at some point in Afghanistan. But really, we're going to end up with people like this. The idea that we're colluding with the Taliban, though, I think is far-fetched to the point of impossible to believe.
It seems as though he's paying lip service to, folks in Afghanistan, and that's kind of the feeling that I get. Yeah, because you mentioned these bursts that he comes out with every now and then. It seems like it's in order to make himself appear not so ingratiated with towards the United States, he has to do this every now and then to buck the belief that he's somehow their puppet.
I think there's very much to that idea. I mean, politics is universal really around the globe, and he's appealing to a certain constituency there by tweaking us.
Mm-hmm. The situation in North Korea, I don't know what to make of them. Now they're saying that the armistice, that their agreement with South Korea is now gone. Their rhetoric has become more. It's the confrontational aspect of their rhetoric seems to be amping up. I know you've said previously that they don't do anything without China's approval. Is this? I can't tell if this is just intense saber rattling of a young kid leader, because the guy's in his 20s still, isn't he? Kim Jong-un. I can't tell if it's just saber rattling. What do you make of this? I mean, is this just something that we say, oh my gosh, this is just, the same stuff a different day? Or is this maybe some sort of a distraction from China, perhaps? I don't know.
I think that there are a lot of good reasons why we have to take this seriously. number one, it probably is just bluster. But which would you rather err on the side of? Saying it's completely meaningless and then all of a sudden a nuclear device is transferred or goes off somewhere? Or would you rather err on the side of, well, it's irresponsible even to give false threats about nuclear capabilities, and undoing the armistice is something that's been threatened before, but it's very destabilizing to suggest that that is what their intention is. So I think that if you're someone who's responsible for troops, for protecting territories, and basically have responsibilities of a commander-in-chief, you have to operate under the possibility that one day a madman might be telling you what he means. Even though it's probably true, like every academic and foreign policy establishment person would tell you, this is just bluster, this is a spoiled child looking for attention.
Right.
He's playing with the world's most dangerous things. We just don't have the luxury of pretending he's not serious.
Are we going to have to depend upon China to be the go-between, as per usual, with this?
Well, I think that's been one of our main mistakes. I mean, we've assumed that China shares our interest in a denuclearized Korean Peninsula, and I just fundamentally believe they do not. And I think that we need to consider, whether it's Iran or North Korea, sanctions that target the leadership of China and Russia if we want to change their enabling behavior. Ultimately, we've tried to target ways to shape North Korea's behavior. They've all failed in Republican and Democrat administration.
Right.
And their progress continues as one of the most sanctioned countries on earth. So we need to start shifting towards how do we penalize their enablers and see if that might begin to change the calculus.
With the death of Hugo Chavez, and now where everyone's expelling everybody else's diplomats and ambassadors, so on and so forth, where does our relationship with this country stand right now?
Well, to a degree, I don't want to sound entirely flippant about it, but to a degree it doesn't matter because Hugo Chavez has been so extreme about things over such a long period of time. What used to be a very good and profitable relationship between the United States and Venezuela has gone very bad. And so his passing, of course, is a net positive, I think, for the world in general, but for our relations. We'll have to see what comes after him, how the relations sort out. But fundamentally, they will not have the capability to destabilize their neighbors as much as they had in the past. We are less dependent on oil from Venezuela thanks to science and sound minds discovering reserves in our own country. And so I think that we're in a better place to be able to deal with what may come out of Venezuela, and hopefully the people there will get a break, and maybe the opposition leader will get some real momentum this time. I
hope so. I read just yesterday that they were putting him in a snow white glass coffin. That's kind of creepy.
Yes. Up there with Mao and the grossness of the dictators of the world.
Oh, yay. Lovely. Isn't that just precious? Well, oh, my. I read, I'm like, oh, great. That's going to be a pilgrimage for statists all over the world. Well, Stephen Yates, I look forward to seeing you this week. We'll be broadcasting from D.C. at CPAC, and I know you're going to be there as well. So I look forward to it.
I do, too. Take care.
Right, take care. Thanks, Stephen. It's Stephen Yates with the D.C. International Advisory. You can find him online, dciadvisory.org.